do something. Okay. Ecclesiastes, canonicity of Ecclesiastes. So this is how you look at, right? How Hebrew canon looks like. All right. Hebrew Bible has got how many divisions? 3 divisions. Jesus used a statement in Luke 24, verse 44. What was the statement of Jesus? Let's look at that one. Luke 24.
He said to them, "This is what I told you while I was still with you. Everything must be fulfilled that is written about me in the law of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms."
All right. Remember, look at that. Jesus is using 3 words, right? In the law of Moses and the prophets and the Psalms. Now, suddenly we might think, oh, right, he's talking about prophets, all right? If you don't have that Jewish understanding, we will not understand that word, right? Jesus speaking to the Jewish people, and clearly they understand. It is a reference to the entire Old Testament books. Law of Moses, prophets, and Psalms. What are the Hebrew titles for that one? For example, the law of Moses, known as Torah, right? Torah. And prophets, Nevi'im. And Nevi'im is divided into 2. Former prophets, latter prophets, right? That is divided into 2. And it has got these many books. And writings is divided into 3, right? So when Jesus used the word Psalm, he is referring to Ketuvim, right? Ketuvim. That is what Jesus is referring to, which includes a lot of books, all right? For example, writings are divided into 3 categories. In Hebrew Bible, you have poetical books. Those are the 3, Psalms, Proverbs, and Job. Then there is something known as 5 scrolls or 5 rolls. That is known as Megillot, right? Megillot. What are the books? You see Song of Solomon, Ruth, Lamentation, Esther, and there you see what? Ecclesiastes. All right? That's where you see. Then you have historical books. Quite interesting, right? Our historical books are here, right? But Jewish historical book, they call historical books this 3. And so what is the last book? What is the last book for them? Chronicles. They don't have First Chronicles, Second Chronicles. All our First and Second Chronicles are put together 1. All right? So it is last book, Chronicles. All right, so this is what Jewish division. So now you understand how this looks like, right? All right. Now, questions about its canonicity. Some people were saying that, this is anti-legomen, and that means it may not be. It may not be part of the inspired. Some people things like that, and especially some of the Jewish people, Mishnah, the Hebrew Jewish writings tell us the dispute between Hillel school and school of Shammai. It talks about this dispute whether it is inspired or not, right? Now, but we know that it is not clearly cited in the New Testament. Yes. You don't have any verse that is quoted in the New Testament from Ecclesiastes. But what you would see, some allusions that is in Romans 8:20 and James 4:14. That's what you see. All right. But generally, we Jewish people generally saw that it is inspired. Of course, there were some questions, but it was not a big one. All right, now let's look at the message of Ecclesiastes. What is the main thing? Right now, there may be many ways people look at. Some people say, no, this is a negative view, right? Negative view. What is negative interpretation? Like they say, Solomon looks at life and say, life is not worth living, right? That is what the argument for some people. So some people take it as a negative, right? But others would take it as positive, right? So positive pole, like no, Solomon actually observed life as it is, but he comes with his own interpretation. So I think let's go to a little bit of how this is done with a positive pole. Those who tend to explain Ecclesiastes from a positive pole generally do so because they think that Kohelet is viewed as having a world and life view that were more positive. All right, let me ask you a question from Book of Ecclesiastes. Answer me from your memory. What was the one word that repeated many times in the Book of Ecclesiastes? One word.
Meaningless.
Meaningless.
Yes. Or some translation would say vanity, right? Vanity, vanity, vanity. So how do you understand the style of writing, the intention of the author, right? So let's look at a few points here. Kohelet makes a distinction between life ways, the way life seems to be, and the way life really is, right? There is a distinction. If you really look closely, he says, sometimes, okay, look at the life, that how it seems, then what is the reality? All right, let's look at that one. Kohelet recognized that man lives in a sin-cursed world, right? Yeah, I think we all need to recognize that one. We all need to recognize that we live in a sin-cursed world, and we need to face that reality of sinfulness. All right, so Solomon understands, right? The Kohelet understands that. And because this is sin-cursed world, man cannot understand many facets of this world and depraved man's actions. We're not able to understand. And you can look at people and say they deceive you, they tell lies, they rob you, they attack you, they talk ill of you, they speak evil, and there's war, there is famine. Yes, we live in a depraved world. As a biblical theologian, Kohelet informs us on how to live a godly lives in the midst of an ever-puzzling, frustrating world. Yes, in a world, sinful world is a vanity, meaningless, right? If you look at with a human eye view, yeah, it is meaningless. So let's look at the message actually. This is the summary. I just wanted to give you the summary of the message so that you can focus on the summary, and later when you teach and preach, develop that message, right? This is what he says. Life with its frustratingly enigmatic nature. Now, what is enigma? Enigma means vanity or meaningless, right? Meaningless. That is what enigma. So, life with its frustratingly enigmatic nature or finite, fallen man who, along with his world, has been victimized by the fall, right? Okay, that's just it. So what we need to understand that we live in a sinful world, right? And because of sin, yes, we need to go through this meaningless life. In a way, if you look at life without God, right? So if I write without God, it is meaningless. Look at the world without God, right? It is meaningless. But yes, but we can judiciously be enjoyed when one has a vital relationship with the sovereign God. So, if we have a relationship with God, the question is it vanity? Right? Let me ask, please think, answer me. If you have a relationship with God, is life meaningless? Anyone? Anyone? I'm asking, this is the question. If we have a relationship with God, is life meaningless?
No, not at all. It
Not
will
at all.
be so meaningful, highly meaningful.
Meaningful. So vanity
Yes.
is determined because why? Why it is vanity? If there is no relationship with God, right? So we need to learn that yes, God holds us responsible. If you live a responsible life, it is meaningful. So in Ecclesiastes, Solomon was trying to figure out the meaning and purpose of life and how this affected his daily living. All right. So the message of Ecclesiastes focuses on life in a sin-cursed world. All right. So that means Solomon focused on two aspects of life. All right. Two aspects of life. One is looking life with an unbeliever's viewpoint. If you're a wise man and if you're an unbeliever, this is what the observation. What is the observation? It is meaningless. All right. If you're a wise man and you have no connection with God. But if you're a wise man that is connected with God, then what? Your life is meaningful. Meaningful. So we need to understand two aspects of Solomon's message. That is, first, life in sin-cursed world cannot be fully comprehended by man. Right? If you're a wise man, you will understand you are not able to really grasp everything that is going on. Yes, Solomon knew that. But Solomon wants to say, life in sin-cursed world can be judiciously enjoyed by man, provided that if you trust in God. Yes, life is not meaningless if you trust in God. But life is meaningless if you don't trust God. But there is one more thing. Always understand, you will not understand everything that takes place in this world. Right? You cannot fully comprehend because you're a human being. You don't understand God's plan. All right, so that is the main argument here. about the message. Look at the life with God's viewpoint. Look at the life with the man's viewpoint. Look at the life as an unbeliever. Look at the life as a believer. And Solomon has a conclusion, right? He begins with vanity, meaningless, right? All right, so you have the analysis here. Maybe I can just go through quickly the main thing. Introduction, it is contrast between finite man and cyclical, like, everything repeats. That's what he says. It's a contrast between man and cyclical. And second is observation on various areas of life in order to demonstrate following things. So it is about almost until chapter 6, he observes life. And so that is known as the first discourse. First discourse starts from verse 12 of chapter 1, ends in chapter 6. Second discourse, all right. So if it is first discourse is centered around on his observation of life, second discourse is exhortation to godly living in spite of finite man's ability to understand God's past or future work. You don't understand God's plan, but still you need to live a godly life, right? So that is the second, and that runs all the way into chapter 11, all the way to chapter 11, all right? And the conclusion is what? Final exhortation to enjoy life in a God-fearing manner, for God will judge man. He says, enjoy, which is very interesting, right? Enjoy your life, all right? So, and at the end, you will see that his conclusion, right? What is the conclusion? Conclusion is 13 and 14. Let's look at the conclusion of Solomon in Ecclesiastes. Chapter 12, verse 13 to 14.
Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil.
Okay. Yes. So the conclusion is this: fear God and keep his commandment, right? And he says God will bring every act to judgment, whether it is everything which is hidden, whether it is good or evil, everything, right? So that is what the conclusion here actually happens. So please understand what is Solomon, how Solomon begins. So if you look at Ecclesiastes 1, you see everything is vanity, vanity, meaningless, meaningless. Yes, for an unbeliever, it is meaningless. And a finite man, sometimes you don't understand everything. It may be meaningless. But when you trust in the Lord, you can have a meaningful life. Life is meaningful, provided that you know that one day you will be judged. Every act will be judged. One day, every act will be judged, whether it is hidden, whether it's good or evil, everything will be judged. That's what Solomon wants to say. So please, when you teach and preach from the book of Solomon, read the entire book first, like one sitting. It's about 12 chapters, and takes just an hour to finish it, or maybe 70 minutes or something. So sit and read one time. Try to understand. Maybe you can follow the outlines that is provided, and that will be also a help for you as you study this book, right? So I know that you don't hear a proper preaching from the book of Ecclesiastes. Very few people do it. Second, most of the people would take a verse out of context, and they preach. Now they don't understand what is the really underlining message. Once you know the message, then you can build your sermon or explanation on any verses in the book of Solomon, right? I would say when you interpret any book in the Bible, make sure that you know what is the main message of the book, so that you have understanding of what he is trying to communicate here in the passage. All right. So that is what about book of Solomon, book of Ecclesiastes written by Solomon. Right. So we looked at the introductions, right? We looked at the titles, who wrote Ecclesiastes. We know that the evidence is clearly shown that is written by Solomon. All right.